Dao, and I'll just be facilitating today's session. I just wanted to welcome everyone to today's conversation. I think that it's quite fitting that we have this conversation leading up to the events of this weekend. B, more so to have Mr. Seth Mazibuko in our presence. Leading up to the conversations we've been having pertaining to how do we Africanize our institutions of higher learning? How do we connect with what is the African? And more so, do we think that the current state of our student movements these days are reflective of the 1976 very revolutionary and legendary movements as well? So I think it's quite fitting that we'll be having and assessing, if you like, the relationship between the two. I also think more so, quite interesting in our conversation today, we'll also be looking at the role of females, if you like, and looking at the female perspective, the role that female play, and is it relevant, or how then do we make it relevant in the event that we don't find it to be relevant. I think those intersecting views and many others will be what this conversation will be about, but not limited to those. All right. So I don't want to speak too much. I'd like us to get to the crux and to the person and the two other prestigious guests that we have today. I'd like to call them that will be responding to that and also just sharing their experiences and giving us their perspectives from their experiences and their realities, of course. So it'll be quite an interesting intersecting views that we will be looking at today. All right, so just to do the official opening and the welcoming for the event, I'd like to call upon the Director of CANRAD, Mr. Alan Zinn, to the floor. Here.
Thank you so much. I think you've done a good job already of the welcome. I think mine is just a formality. Normally, in the struggle period, the state decided to close schools prior to the 16th of June because they knew that people would be utilizing that space in terms of awareness and educational kind of programs. Our difficulty today, Seth, is that we're actually busy with exams here at the moment, and also many of the students, as they're finishing exams, they're going home. So we in a bit of a different kind of space, but nevertheless, we're very, very happy that we have you here. I went to an event yesterday at the South End Museum. They were busy with the handover of some research and data from what is called the Northern Areas Heritage and History project. What was interesting around it was they were grappling a little bit with the name of what to call this. Some said it was an uprising in 1990, in which about 40 odd people died. Now, in the early days of colonialism, they used to they had different terms. They used to talk about a disturbance until the 16th of June came along, where it was referred to as a riot, and then the people said, we're talking about the uprising of the people, and to the Soweto revolt, actually. That period was quite formative to many of us who are a bit older. I see Moki here, and some Piwe, who's been doing work in Woma and around the Sanlam building. Myself, I grew up politically around that period, but then I was also touched personally because in December 1976, George Botha was killed in the Sanlam building. They threw him down the stairwell, landed on his head, and he died. He was a 30-year-old teacher from Patterson High School. And 10 years later, I was teaching his two sons at Bettelsdorp High School. And sometimes I'm just relaying that one story, because sometimes we don't think about the human toll and the cost that the struggle took. So what I'm hoping, Seth, is that I'm particularly excited about understanding the history and the politics of the time. I think that there's a lot of hidden history that needs to be unearthed. You know, we have this kind of cliche almost today, speaking truth to power and things like that, but I think that we're really in a moment where, yes, we just want to understand exactly what happened. Many people here are going to speak about your role that you played, because any movement is made up of people, of women and men, and people who put themselves on the line. They may speak about your 5 years on the Robben Island University. They may, but for me, you won't know maybe that Seth spent 18 months in solitary confinement. Now, it may not be something that's easy to imagine, but I think that is one of the truest tests of character. And we've had people in our struggle from Winnie Mandela to Peter Jones and other people who had been in that sort of situation. But we have today somebody in the living flesh with us, and hopefully we will get a sense of the commitment that is needed in the struggles that we are still engaging with today. So thank you for putting together the arrangements and your team, and to our partners as well. I'm sure they will be speaking, and looking forward to learning today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And just speaking on partnership, today CANRAD is partnering with the Ezingcanjini African Heritage, and they do a lot of work in terms of consciousness and in terms of cultural consciousness, to be more specific, in the Woma region and broader than, if you like, in the city. And on that note, I'd like to call up Simpiwe just to give us a historical context of today's commemoration, and all the commemorations he's had prior to today.
Thanks very much. Greeting you all. My name is Simpiwe. I am an activist, community developer, also but I more, if I was an intellectual, I would have said I'm looking at the work of Biko in most of the time. Like I've dedicated myself in the life of Biko in the Nelson Mandela Bay. I'm glad I can see Taban is here now. He's coming here. But actually, to cut the matter short, just for anybody to know, this year is the 40th anniversary since Biko died. So that's number one. Number two is the 15th year since the NMMU gave posthumous doctorate to Steve Biko, in 2002 then. And it's also the 10th year that I noticed since the municipality and the government outside the political structure working on the project of Biko. I remember in Woma, it was 2006, African was there when Peter Jones was there with MEC and Nosimo Balindlela and Mayor Nondumiso Mapazi. That's when I really noticed the life of Biko. But again, it was the same year that we also started to work with Dr. Ezingcanjini with all the other heralds, trying to dig deeper into the history of Biko. But what's happening now? Let me say, since 2012, I'm very glad. Actually, since 2011, when CANRAD started to work on Biko, first lecture, and in 2012, in the 35th anniversary, it was a supplement. If people can remember, CANRAD gave out a supplement. Then in 2013, I still remember that we talk about the idea of doing youth conversations, like getting the young people, promoting consciousness and cultural, critical thinking. Then it was the year of 2012, if I still remember, we worked hard in getting the voice for the Sanlam. Sanlam building was one of the places where Biko was tortured, but it was neglected, and many other people. I remember we were doing a lot of sort of protests and everything like that. But fortunately, one of the highlights this year actually is that is the Sanlam building was actually bought in that year in 2012 by the people that are developing today. And I'm glad actually this year, though I was not there, I was behind the official launch that actually took place on the 18th and the 19th. The human settlement came down and everything like that. But now, you know, coming to this year, actually, that is June month, June 16 and everything like that. You know, many people may remember that is the essay that Nelson Mandela wrote about the black consciousness while he was in prison. The Nelson Mandela Foundation asked, who's this guy, Professor Kolela Mangu, to interpret, to actually work on the essay. But the strong part that came really on that essay that made me to look more strongly was actually the fact that is the events of June 16th was more led by the influence of the black consciousness. The ANC and the PAC were in what called punishment or in exile and everything like that. So now, when I really dig deeper, then that's where I thought that maybe it's good that we could do something. But when we all again get down and research, I remember I came to Conrad again, as I normally come, talk to Sonabo. Sonabo, there's this stronger thing, what could we do? Then we took up a phone again, we just make a phone randomly to Seth, and Seth, we're just making a research, man, here. It's black consciousness and Biko everything. Then I remember Seth was rolling, no, please, don't get afraid. Biko was central, everything like that. So I'm glad about it because I think today actually he's actually to come stronger on that actually to that. But lastly, let me say people, September is around the corner. This is actually the month where we're all doing a celebration of Biko and every time like that. Some of us, we started early, it's fine. I'm hoping actually the next month, if things work so right as I did the other year, I'll be going down again as I already started actually to Rhodes University, because on the 17th of July, it will be the 50th anniversary since the 43 Congress of New South took place there, when Biko and all other black students were marched out because the administrators didn't allow them to dine and be accommodated in the university. So I'm hoping that actually something will also happen into that land. But actually on last note, let me say that is September is around the corner. I hope that everyone that is around Nelson Mandela Bay, including the municipality, this is the work that I'm doing now, I'm trying to conscientize everybody. Municipality, the department, I'm glad I think here True Spokazi, there are also pro-black movements that are around here. That is, I think that is if that's possible, let's make September this year more better. More and more. The last part that I want to say, the BC week, what is called BC week or the Steve Biko week, that is all commemorated like Shari. Actually, it all took place in, let me say, BC week is actually the 6th of September to the 12th of September. It's actually the period that Biko suffered until he died actually the next day in Pretoria. But actually the 6th of September was the start of torturing here at the Sanlam building. So I've been talking to other people and asked them, look here, why we are here at Nelson Mandela Bay, the BC week will be rejoiced in Johannesburg, in Natal. Why it cannot be even rebranded as the same week that belongs here? Because it all happens here. I mean, the whole story about TRC of Biko and everything, it all is here. There's not much about TRC of Biko. If you want the torturing, it's all about in the Sanlam. So like I'm looking also forward in September, that is, we do that. I'm calling upon them, everybody that is actually really throw the idea to really stand up and everything, but I must really thank also Alan here, also always listening man, and also actually the staff of Conrad, the other new faces that I've just seen now, really hard worker. Couldn't believe Spokers would work so hard like this. So that is the nutshell, people, that I can tell you all what is happening, what are we looking for. Thank you very much.
All right. On that note, I think I just want to delve into the program for today. And I'd like to just give a brief bio on our guest for today, before I also just give also a brief bio on our respondents. All right. So Mr. Seth Mazibuko was one of the student leaders in the June 16 uprising, as you may know. During his time as a student activist, he was the deputy to Ezingcanjini of the, and in collaboration with the South African student movement. He was the deputy of Ezingcanjini, I think, part of the action committee that planned and led the June 16 march. Seth, who is a Soweto-based community worker with the Moral Regeneration Movement, was the youngest student leader to be arrested and imprisoned, leading to the Soweto uprising. At 16, he was sentenced to 5 years on Robben Island, and whilst on Robben Island, he was often placed in lengthy periods, solitary confinement. After his time on Robben Island, Mazibuko became a teacher and school principal. He was the chief operating officer for the Moral Regeneration Movement, an NGO which focuses on nation building and social cohesion. And currently, he is the chancellor of the June 16 Youth Development Foundation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Seth.
I had to take the hug because he owes me an explanation for making my life late last night.
I apologize so many times. All right. I think I'll also just welcome the respondents and just ask them to join Mr. Mazibuko from the onset. So our first respondent is Ms. Nangamso Ngumalo. She's a BCom law student at the university, currently known as NMMU, but I think we'll embrace Nelson Mandela University for today. She's a non-partisan cis woman who's a staunch member of the Black Student Stockful. And as part of her student activism, she has traveled cross-country representing NMU as a delegate in conferences held in and on the outskirts of Johannesburg, such as Rethink Africa and the Foundation for Human Rights, in particular speaking to the issue of rape culture, sexual harassment, and gender dialogues. So she's a firm believer in whatever makes sense until such a time that is proven that it doesn't. So in essence, she is also a firm believer in Black consciousness, Black radical feminism, and Pan-Africanism. She's patiently waiting for the day that this will no longer be necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Nanga. All right, joining Ms. Ngumalo as a second respondent is Mr. Azola Taile, who's a final year student in the Department of Journalism, Media and Philosophy, majoring in Philosophy and Cultural Studies. He is an active member and participant in the Black Student Stockful, a collective of critical students committed to the decolonial agenda and a reimagination of the university space as well as surrounding communities. Outside the university, Azola is a literacy coordinator at UNAGO, a community-based movement, and which is also a non-profit organization that works at over 7 schools in 4 disadvantaged communities around the Nelson Mandela Metro. However, above and beyond, he believes, or he argues that he is a Black conscious adherent and an avid lover of the written and spoken word, but most importantly of Black people. Ladies and gentlemen, Azola Taile.
Not today.
Without wasting any further ado, we'll kickstart the conversation. So we'll have you, Mr. Mazibuko, and you may address the host. Thank you so much.
Let me be quick to ask that we all stand up and observe a moment of silence. But just before you do that, please know this. Yesterday, what was the date? The 13th of June is very, very significant in the history of June 16. At the YMCA DOCC in Soweto, students met for the first time on the call by South African student movement. It was on the 13th of June that students took the decision that they're marching on the 16th. 3 days only in between. Don't ask me why, but I'll tell you even though you don't ask. Number one, we were just about to write mid-year exams. So we were avoiding those exams. We still do that even now when we play. So we were avoiding those exams. 2, those days you will never sit with information and keep it longer before getting arrested. So the quicker you move and apply information, the better. So if you ask, one of the victories of the 1976 struggle is that that information of deciding to go out to the streets only had a 3 days life. By the time they woke up, we were out there confronting them. Actually, in our trial, which was called Soweto 11 in Captain Park, the one brigadier who was in charge of the police that day said, they got us with our pants down. We did not know that was this going to happen. That was what was going to happen. So I just want you to find out, and in this, why I'm saying this. I'm also saying this because I'm going to center my talk more on the lines of the virtues, the values, the victories of youth leadership. That is what I'm going to bring in Steve Biko. Those 3 V's, the virtues, the values, and the victories of youth leadership. And I'm going to try and explain this from, and not compare. I'm not going to compare the struggle of 1976 with the struggle of 1986, and that of 1986 with the struggle of 2006. I'm not, I refuse, and even that of 2016. Because you are talking about an oven and a microwave. Hello? Hello? Our struggle was more of an oven. Yours is a microwave one. That is why Fist Must Fall got so much fire over your fingers. With us, I was saying to you, it had to take 3 days because we did not have the fingers to send the SMSs and the WhatsApp. We were what's down the time. And I'm going to get into that. But having said that, let me take the opportunity to thank the people of Woma who made me so warm today. And they were beautiful. And I addressed young people and people working in the community there, and further went to a school called Woma High. Quite a big number that I had to address. And I told them that I'm addressing these future academics this afternoon, and I wish to engage. Okay, now, having said that, I want us to stand up. People, there's this question I'm always asked. Whenever I go into interviews, the question is, Seth, what is that significant thing that you can identify about June 16th, the day? Unfortunately, I have nothing to celebrate about the day. When I saw 478 bodies of children scattered around, I had no reason to celebrate. If there's one thing I regret, young South Africans, my fellow Africans, the owners of this land and Africa, one thing that I regret is that I led students and children, 13 years to 16-year-olds, out of the classrooms to be killed by their own parents. That sits with me somewhere, and I cannot take it out. I'm the one who killed, in a way. I sometimes go that extreme. Hector Peterson, Hastings and Jove. There could be fathers like me today, but they're no more. Is this how much the cost of our struggle should be? That 13-year-olds and 16-year-olds can die and go to jail. That's the cost of the struggle. 1. 2, as we are going to be observing a moment of silence, I want to say to you, it was not a day where we had school uniform and gone to shebeens. We did not. Our fathers that very day had to be called off from the factories and our mothers because their children were dying. History correction. The first victim of 1976 is Hastings Ndlovu, not Hector Peterson. Hastings Ndlovu died at 10 to 9 and Hector Peterson at 20 past 9. Can we leave that? I'm taking you to the moment of silence because I want you to think about what happened that day. There wasn't any farm that took us out there, and we knew, let me assure you, that we were dealing with one pillar that was very, very firm of apartheid system, education. When Steve Biko started talking to us about a psychological liberation, we knew that for us to be able to liberate ourselves, we've got to break that core of the system, which was education.
Yes.
You leave education untouched. When you leave education still decolonized, you are still colonized. I mean, Phil. Did I say it correctly? If you leave education colonized, right, you are still colonized. I'm going to engage with you there. I can see you're starting to smile, but I don't want you to smile for now. All right? For now, I want to say to you, the death of those young people, I put that around Solon Mashamo, one of the leaders of 1976, who at some point in an year he was captured. Don't ask by who. I want to say, he said some words when he went down to the gallows. And they sit with me. I see some of the members that were with me earlier on are here. That the tree of liberation shall be watered by the blood of the martyrs. Mama, tell my people. And went down to die. Guys, that tree of liberation that was watered by blood meant that you, as this generation, should enjoy the fruit of the tree. If you don't enjoy the fruit of the tree, at least the shade of the tree. The question is, do you enjoy the fruit of the tree? You get killed still now as women. You get raped as women. Are you enjoying the fruit? Are you enjoying the shade? You hardly have land. Are you there with me? Please move with me, because I'm taking you somewhere. Okay? There's a preacher in me, be careful. Okay? There's a teacher, a preacher, and you take all these two things, you can imagine what to come out with. Okay. Let me take a moment, guys, and please, my fellow compatriots, just to remember those who laid their lives with their blood also to bring us here. I thank you. You may sit. Maybe as Mpiwe started my opening, and I'm going to start just there. You can't speak about June 16 and not speak about Steve Biko. That would be wrong. And I'm going to speak a bit and say, and run to saying this, what I'm going to say now. Immediately, when you as students, particularly fees must fall, I've said this in every university I've visited. What made you to fall instead of fees falling? Okay? It is when you started putting t-shirts that belong to certain political parties. Ashans and Koban. Immediately when you started and black and started introducing a black and red and started introducing your green and gold and the blue. You messed it up. You fell, but fees never fell. That is why we're still having this now. That's my point one, and I want you to challenge me on it. When fees must fall started, when you guys went to Cape Town, okay, in Parliament, when you refused politicians to address you, I said, yes! But when they started addressing you, you fell. Some of you got captured by these parties. You are captured fees must fall movement. And sorry, I forgot to say this. I am 99 at 9. Oh, okay. Ekasi. It's a way true. Masiti 99. We mean we are frank. We are just frank. We take the keys. Okay? Now let me tell you. For the fees must fall to again. Oh, I forgot to say something. Whoa. I'm sorry, I might be disturbing as I get recording. But let me tell you this. I forgot to say this. I thought I was going to say it before we go into a moment of silence. Students, academics that are here, hear me. I apologize for most of the leaders of 1976. I apologize. We sold you out. I apologize. We sold you out. Immediately after 1994 from Captain Park, we rushed for PEE. Huh? And we got them stomachs full of PEE. We left you without what Steve Biko would have called psychological liberation. We didn't help you there. Yes. We rushed to go to Parliament to be called MPs. We left you unattended. The struggle of 1976 is supposed to be connecting with your struggle now. Actually, it is. But we left you to find it. I apologize. Please accept. And I'm doing this even for maybe those that might have thought us, we have not played our role. When some of us were supposed to be with you as leaders, actually, let me tell you something. When we even vote for us and we get positions, we leave the community, we go somewhere. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? It's like you. When you get your degree, you leave your community, you go to Summerstrand. Today when I saw young people in Warma, their outcry was, we're leaderless, we don't have leaders. Where are our leaders? Huh? You're getting raped because you have no mothers anymore. And fathers that can talk to you. You know where are they? Drinking whiskey and cigars. And I'm going to be blunt with that. Some of the rules and some of the cultures that we're supposed to give you, you are not getting anymore. You even get foreign cultures. That makes you as boys to even undermine your women. I was asked to speak about Steve Biko in 1976. This is the man that spoke mainly about psychological liberation before physical liberation. Today, we have leaders that will talk economic freedom. Hello? But they hardly have. I'm going to repeat. We have leaders that will talk economic freedom once they don't have psychological freedom. That is why they'll go to London easily and come back and do other things. I didn't say anything. Okay? Immediately when you rush for economic freedom without psychological liberation, you'll mess up with that economic freedom. You will mess up. You will even go to wrong people and ask for economic freedom. Even go to wrong people to ask for your land. Even sell your land and say, let's buy it. And he told Steve Biko would have refused. That we can speak all about what we're speaking about. The relevance of Steve Biko of 1976 and before is still here, guys. The one thing that even CODESA did and did wrong, Alan, it was that after CODESA and after 1994, we buried black consciousness. We became a rainbow nation. Where is it? Let me find the rainbow nation. Show me. And we killed what was more important, that psychological liberation and maintenance of our blackness. And of course, we never even serviced our Africanism. Instead, we despised our Africanism.
Yes.
I was saying to the students at Roma today, it is easy to ask a child about dromedaries, Reiche, and Goedewop at the Cape of Good Hope, 1652. Very, very easy. Ask that child about Hector Peterson, C.S. Mashinini, and about, he will tell you, I don't know. And I have a problem with that. Ask academics who are doing research and everything. Ask them how far have they done research within the African context. Some of you do not know who Du Bois is. Some of you do not know who Kwame Nkrumah is. Some of you just don't know. And some of you will feel more comfortable by foreign ideologies rather than African ideologies. And I'm saying, please get liberated. That's my call today. Simply. Get liberated. Please, let's get liberated. Steve Biko's body, wherever he is, he should be looking at us and saying, what is happening? And I'm challenging you, as fellow South Africans, let not the fruit of the tree of liberation be enjoyed by the Guptas. The fruit of liberation must be that was watered by the blood. There was never a blood from the Guptas that watered the tree. But funny, you guys are not enjoying the fruit, you are hardly enjoying the shade of the tree. But Guptas are enjoying everything from it. I'm bitter, I'm angry, call me whatever you want to call me. I'm so happy I'm seeing COSAS, that's why I'm saying this. I started COSAS. We were part of the struggle of the June 16th struggle. But here they are today. I said to you guys, please, 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 don't be diluted by t-shirts. Politicians will abuse and use you. Please be clean in your student struggle. Be clean. Go focus on, otherwise I'm telling you, by God's grace, you'll gain that BEE. And I'm appealing. When students at Roma and youth at Roma said, hey, Mama Zibugo, what is going on now? It's just tenders. Tenders. We fight even for tenders. Yeah. I said to them, mainly because we, your fathers, when we got the freedom after CODESA, we went for BEE instead of protecting you. And now you want the fruits of BEE. We tried to even make it broad-based, now it is radical what? Something like that. I haven't seen how radical that is to date. And I'm appealing young South Africans. And that is what I'm saying. Two messages I'm bringing it to you. One, the values of youth leadership should be based not on a t-shirt, but on youth matters. Are you there? That's what made us to win the struggle of 1976, to bring down that apartheid education. And we know that it's not yet off, because it's still very heavily our children. And campuses, let me speak about that before I even take questions. Campuses, please, your struggle as university students is the struggle of communities. Don't separate it. The people that are paying fees are your mothers and fathers who are poor in those shacks. But you can be. There are those who are paying prepaid water and prepaid electricity and call it freedom. Your struggle in campuses is the struggle of the community. You walk around many campuses. I was sharing this with Alan yesterday. I say you see many Western and names, many buildings that are even hiding the community. Universities are far. They're not even doing anything in the communities. Steve Biko would have cried because Mabeka Muhapi also cried out and said the core of the community leadership is the core that is academic. Communities are crying for you. I'm calling upon you as students in this what I don't want to call the last lecture or the last interaction. That now, let us go back and start discussing those values that we lost out because of t-shirts. And I was saying to the youth earlier on, when we went out to the streets in 1976, it was in one purpose. One purpose. How many purposes do you have as young people today? The victory of that time is the victory that at least we brought the government of the day, that time, we brought it to its knees. And I'm appealing. My talk today, more than just being a subject talk, but it's more of an appeal talk. Bring back the Steve Biko thinking. Let it sit in. As I said, that if you want that economic freedom, get your psychological liberation. I'm going further. I always say this, and I don't want to leave it out because I don't want you to hear it somewhere else. Can I take my nose? Will you spy on my nose? I wanted to say, and I share this all the time, I'm hoping that very soon I'll write a book about it. I'm privileged that I lived in 3 stone ages. Stone age number 1, it was in 1976 when I was throwing stones. And I did very well. Oh, no, I don't owe you there. I did it very well. But Stone age number 2, it was at the age of 16 when I went to Robben Island.
Yes.
Hello? And I was breaking stones there in the quarry. Are you there? Stone age number 3. It is now, I'm gathering stones for the reconstruction and development of myself, of Africa, of South Africa, and my community, not of Bhutan. I am gathering stones, and I'm saying to all of you young people, you are stone gatherers. You are stone gatherers, and it's a tough one because you've got to pick up stones that we threw all over. And please pick up those stones and start building a new South Africa, not a rainbow nation. Let's build a South Africa that is purely South Africa in education, in the way we speak, in the way we show respect, in the way we do things. That's the South Africa I'm waiting for. That's the Steve Biko South Africa. Maybe he would have called it Tanzania. Maybe he would have called it Tanzania. And I'm happy that now politicians are starting to ask the question, are we not supposed to rename South Africa? It's coming up. History repeats itself, yeah? That's how we are, our politicians. Say this today, tomorrow's another. Now, my fellow South Africans, I was saying, the other, and I must share some of the experiences that we went through as we were going. I was sharing this with the boys, and they're still feeling very painful. I won't forget the toughness that I personally went through. in the years when I was interrogated and kept under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act for 18 months alone in a cell. We're talking about it. The food we're eating yesterday couldn't even be swallowed, mainly because it was painful. And whenever I go back to think about it, it gets me very sick. Guys, ladies, close your ears. I was made to squat like this, 3 bricks and a twine on my balls. Lift up those 3 bricks as we're squatting. The lady Sibongile Mthembu, speaking of the role of women. Sibongile Mthembu now in the children in Mandela Children's Fund, CEO there. Okay? I know her Eva suit. They would take pliers and pull Sibongile's nipples in front of me. What am I saying? Those are some of the pains that young people go through. The 478 bodies that were scattered all over are just part of one of the things that happened. And I'm appealing to all of you, my fellow South Africans. I'm appealing to all of you that now please, when we talk, for instance, the struggle that is faced by you, I always say, fears must fall is just another level of what happened in 1976. And I don't think that many things, many matters that were supposed to be dealt with by 1976, we still see a lot of them even today. That is why I say we failed you as the group, as the class of 76. We failed you because we're not there to lead you. And I'm saying, sons and daughters of the soil, beauty and pride of Mother Africa. You know, Africa is shaped like a question mark. Have you noticed? And the answers of that question mark are in the dot of the question mark, which is South Africa. Please do me a favor, let's give answers to Africa. I was sharing with other comrades earlier on and saying, you know what also was good, say whatever you want to say about Mugabe, but one thing that Mugabe did is that he listened to Steve Biko. First thing that Mugabe did after liberation, it was, let's clean up education. Education, education. That is why even our government today gets teachers from Zimbabwe. And I'm challenging you as academics, and I'm challenging you as young people, and I'm challenging you that now, please, do whatever you do. Speak however dialectical materialism you can speak about. Speak about the thesis and the antithesis and the synthesis. Speak about whatever, but at the end of the day, talk about pap and fleece. Talk about those things that someone is going to eat, someone is going to go to school. I said, let's not make our education a feeding scheme thing. Feeding scheme is one thing. What are we feeding our children in the classroom? Let's consolidate that which is happening in the classroom. And I'm appealing, fellow South Africans, and particularly you who are taking these academic positions very soon. Prioritize education. We still haven't moved. Some of the failures that we see today are there because we have undermined the biggest weapon which apartheid also used against us. It was Verwoerd when designing apartheid who said, let's get this education that will make a black child to see the greener pastures but not reach them. That education that we are still learning partly, okay, is there for you to see the greener pastures but not reach them. So if you're crying out and saying you are not yet liberated, you're still suffering, let me tell you, you're still suffering because the man who was an architect of apartheid is what he wanted to achieve. I tell students, I see some of my comrades here, I told students earlier on that I thank God for one thing. I'm a Christian, by the way.
Hallelujah.
Unreservedly. and I told them that now, one of the things that I always want to say is that now, the day June 16 was very interesting. There's another story I have to tell. Is that the God of Africa, the God that we pray, was very good to us. We're marching. The action committee that was elected to the 13th had a small team. So this is not a boys' club. Okay. Now let me be just easy with you there. And she was the secretary of the Action Committee. And now she's the CEO, as I said, at Mandela Foundation. Can I say this? When we were marching the day, the first group of students led by TNC arrived. As they were arriving, behind them there were police who started shooting tear gas canisters. And when we shot those tear gas, not tear gas canisters first, they started shooting, tear gas canisters. Then the next thing, because God was so great, the whole wind and the fumes were blowing back to them. So they were affected by tear gas more than us. Now they decided, step 2, to release the dogs. They released the dogs. Now, you know, there was a natural service available. And the natural service that was available was stones. We got the stones. We hit them. This is After that, what happens is that behind them now came the students that were led by Smongile. I keep on referring to you because I like you there. And then they were coming from behind and they thought we were sandwiching them. And that is when they started opening up fire. That is when they started killing us. Guys, one thing again I regret with 1976. I led children with books out of the classroom to be killed by their fathers with bullets. That's another thing that I regret. But as I said, just like Solomon Shamu, that was the tree of liberation, watered by the blood of the martyrs. And you can spend here the whole day, but I want to say to you, central to what we're saying, one of the things that we admire about, and I've got to mention this, Alan, one thing that we admire about Port Elizabeth in particular, and is that the very first group of leaders of 1976 that were locked on Robben Island in a section called E section, which we called Klepegoyers. We're from here. Satima Kozoma. We followed them by our Stone Sizane. So when we got into Robben Island, we already had PE there. They were called PE 33. And there's a research for you. They were called PE 33. And I'm saying I honor those men who actually opened up, and when we came in on Robben Island, we're still strong. As to where they are now, you will tell me. Please, you will tell them, open up for that. And I was also saying it is very, very important that here is a TRC. What is TRC? No. Oh, okay. What is TRC? No. Blacks reconciling. Blacks reconciling with whites. I'm still waiting. Don't make me angry about the TRC thing. I'm still waiting to see someone coming to me and saying I apologize. I've got a child, my daughter and my son, I took to Robben Island to go and stay with me for a weekend in the cell where I was. She came out the bitter and said, Papa, is this where you were? I said, yes. What for? For education. That's all. That's all. The thing is, guys, some of these things is that you are made comfortable about things that are hard. When you think of June 16, you think of Sarafina. Imagine. So you think of June 16. And Sarafina. And the million rand that was given to Sarafina. Yeah. That's just the thinking that comes in. I'm asking, please, June 16 is not Sarafina. June 16, Steve Biko died because of June 16.
Yes.
Mohapi, Mapeta Mohapi died because of June 16. Yes. Solomon Mashtango did not die for some organization or party. Actually ran away before he could finish off his training to come back home and said, "We are busy outside here drinking wine and doing cigars. I'm going back." And that is how then he was killed, because he was not fully trained. Here's the list. And these are the people that we've got to remember. These are the people we've got to honor. And these are the people who never fought for their own self-prosperity, but fought for the people. These are the people who spoke about this land belonging to us, not to them. So why should I reconcile and have somebody coming to me, no, I mean, the only reconciliation that I can talk about, it is when you guys are psychologically liberated enough to be able to own the land. God bless you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Seth. I don't want to take anything away, so I will not even dare to contribute to that. I will allow Nangamso and Azola, and arguably Azola first. Are you comfortable with that? Yeah, she's nominated. Is that okay? Is that okay? Yeah. All right. So Azola, you have about So you can just wow us with what you think and give us your perspective.
Okay, thank you. Mandla. Peace amongst the Africans and war against the enemy. That's my first response to Dr. Seth Mazibuko. But anyways, greetings to black people, to comrades, colleagues, academic staff, if there are any amongst us today, for this auspicious occasion. You'll have to forgive me, I have a list when I speak in front of huge crowds. But of course, still greetings to friends, to lovers, to enemies, and everyone that I might have unfortunately forgotten. But anyways, I want to begin my talk, or perhaps response, today by first and foremost appealing to all men in the room. I see there's many of us here. If we didn't know that there's a war on women's bodies, particularly black women's bodies, and persons who identify themselves within the LGBTIQ+A community, and this war is waged by none other than ourselves as men, particularly black men. So I urge us all, myself included, to move beyond rhetoric and social media updates, but begin to have honest and open conversations and programs around our violent nature, which I do not think is inherent in us. I believe we can be better men, better people, and should we work hand in hand together, we shall definitely overcome the scourge of women's bodies, and of course obliterate totally the power structure that is patriarchy. And to paraphrase on this particular point, a scholar that I love so much from Martinique, or Frans Fanon, South Africa as a developing country must guard against the danger of perpetuating the backward tradition which holds sacred the masculine over the element of the feminine. Women in South Africa today must have exactly the same place as men, not in the clauses of the Constitution only, but of course in the everyday life. In the factory, in this very venue, at school, and in the National Assembly, where decisions about the country are made. But then again, moving back forward to the topic of today, which is the role of black consciousness and the youth struggle of 1976 and the youth struggle of today, and particularly Steve Biko as the central figure of both struggles. I would like to firstly begin by busting the myth that the struggle of 1976 is fundamentally different from the struggle of the youth today. I think that's a lie, it's a fallacy. I mean, I vehemently, without any fear of contradiction, reject that notion as ahistorical and of course as a false claim. In my understanding, the youth of 1976, as Dr. Seth had recently, just now laid out here, was guided by the ideas of Steve Biko and the black consciousness philosophy. They were not only against Afrikaans as a language of teaching and learning in the township schools at the time, but they were in effect calling into question the whole gamut of white values that black people in their own backyard were subjected to assimilate to or else perish in their base, that is the Bantu stands surrounding cities. They were calling into question the immorality and of course irrationality of an apartheid system and the patronizing and quite paternalistic governing of an African society by the very people who regarded themselves as Europeans. So it makes no sense for Europeans to come and govern in an African society. The very same people who had access to an exclusive pool of privileges and rights and amenities because of the very reason that they were European or otherwise white. The youth at the time, they were quite frustrated and angry with little to no outlet to vent out their frustrations. As Upra said, just said, there was a banning of all major political parties, particularly the ANC and the PAC at the time in the early 60s, and this greatly contributed to the growing frustration amongst black communities, in particular the young people in these communities. And I think this is where the philosophy of black consciousness came into the fore. I read somewhere that as early as 1974, 1975, black consciousness adherents such as the revolutionary teacher Abraham Tiro started meeting with the youth leaders such as Ezingcanjini and others of the Soweto Student Representative Council who might have perhaps been written out of history. They started meeting with these youth, and it is here where the revolution, the seeds of revolution were planted and later watered by the idea that, of course, the black man and the black woman must come to themselves, to pump back life into their empty shells, to infuse themselves with pride and dignity, and to remind themselves of their complicity in the crime of allowing themselves to be misused and therefore letting the evil reign supreme in the country of their very birth. And then it is here that I'd like to move to contemporary student struggles, our struggles as the youth today in a post-apartheid so-called democratic South Africa, embodied by the popular student movements of Rhodes Must Fall and of course the Fees Must Fall. I do though want to categorically state that Fees Must Fall, or rather the black student protests centered around exclusion, do not begin at WITS in 2015. That's also a lie. In fact, they begin a decade earlier, in 1995, in as early as 1995, sticking to democratic South Africa, in as early as 1995, just a year after democracy, but still at WITS, where black students took to the streets to highlight how they were systematically being excluded by the university, both overtly and covertly, and the overt way was, of course, through the exorbitant fees that they were expected to pay at WITS at the time in 1994. I mean, who could afford WITS in 1995 at that time? And then it is only in 2015 at the University of Cape Town that the silent exclusions, the other exclusions that the students were excluded at WITS at the time, because it was not just on the basis of money. They were excluded on the basis of that they are black, they were excluded on the basis that they couldn't speak English in a proficient manner. There were many other exclusions that they faced as black students in 1995 at the time at WITS and at many other previously white institutions of higher learning. So in 2015 now at University of Cape Town in Cape Town, under the banner of Rhodes Must Fall, the students there started questioning the other silent exclusions that black students have always faced in post-apartheid South Africa, under the banner, of course, of Rhodes Must Fall. These students found that 22 years into democratic South Africa and close to 40 years since the 1976 youth uprising, that black students at institutions of higher learning were still very much subjected to the same values, same architecture, same teaching staff, same curricula, and same school policies that the youth of 1976 were in actual fact fighting against, and even those of 1995. They posed the question of that how is it then in the democratic and blackless South Africa, only a small percentage of black students are allowed access into institutions of higher learning, leaving millions others to the doldrums of street corners in Kuyasa, in KwaZakhele, in Khayelitsha, Langa, and Imizamo Yethu. But even so, the lucky ones, ourselves who are sitting here today, comfortably in this room, I think we are sitting comfortably. But we are still subjected and expected to thrive when we are taught in a language that perhaps is a fourth or fifth language to us, when the curriculum content does not speak to our everyday lived experiences, does not speak to our problems, but is rather designed to make us into non-thinking individual cogs for a capitalist machine. So, I mean, we are forced even to adopt a double consciousness in order to survive in these spaces. I have to speak Xhosa when I go to KwaZakhele, when I come here, I speak English in a particular way for people to take me seriously, for instance. So I mean, we are still in that culture. It's due to these spaces and the institutional culture, and we are alienated from our communities and families because of us having to adopt this particular double consciousness. I mean, some of us go back home to Libote and find that we can no longer connect with our friends because universities turned us into different things. So these students, as well as other students, of course, in the country, in and around the country, in institutions of higher learning, we're calling into question the whole notion of this freedom and democracy, and we're asking pertinent questions around so what is this freedom and who exactly is free? What is actually this democracy and what are the markers of the democracy? How can we say that, okay, now we're in a democratic South Africa when material conditions at home have not changed? You still live in a shack, you still have to pay fees, and you still get discriminated at the restaurant even. You know, so I want to again go back to my myth-busting statement when I said that there's no fundamental difference between the struggle of the youth of 1976 and the youth of today, and there can be no doubt that even this current generation is guided by an ethos of black consciousness next to black radical feminism and Pan-Africanism, and this even was adopted as guiding principles by the police movement. The police movement kept compromising of Rose must fall and fees must fall. Just as Oprah said, Mazibuko, Tatu Seth Mazibuko, and Utsietsi Mashinini, Khotso, Sialohlolo, and 1,000 others did in 1976, the so-called Born Frees, we are called Born Frees most, the so-called Born Free revolutionaries of 2015 and 2016, under the banner of Rose Must Fall and Fees Must Fall, have indeed, out of relative obscurity, discovered their mission, and I believe that we are on course to fulfilling it. But to end off, though, I'd like to end off with a quote to echo the words of General Che Guevara. General Che Guevara, speaking to a group of students at the Central University of Las Vegas in December 1959, which is the year of the Cuban Revolution, which here, without fear of any contradictions, put it to the students that today people stand at the door of the university, and it is the university that must be flexible. It must color itself black, not just as regards to students, but also the professors and academic staff. That is, color itself black, worker, and peasant, or else find itself without doors. And when that happens, the people will smash it their way and paint the university with the colors that they see fit. So I'd like to end there.
Thank you so much, Azala, for your contribution. And then lastly on the floor, before we open it up to the floor for that engagement, I'd like to award the opportunity to Ms. Nangamzulu.
Okay, I'm not very academic in how I speak. I just go with it. I'm a babe, so I'm just there, and I speak, whatever comes to mind, I speak first. I struggle to conform to any kind of structure and how I'm supposed to, I can't. So you'll just have to bear with me. I will speak mainly based on what they have taught, what they have said, and I will critique. I'll just critique whatever it is that they said pertaining to the gender aspect of liberation movements. Historically, okay, having a context of the 1976 youth uprising and the context Azola of present day liberation movements, I think we've all picked up that there's a lack of gender representation in everything that they have spoken about. Obviously, Mr. Mazibuko has alluded to the fact that and she was the secretary of the action committee during the 1976 uprising, and there's silence subsequently to that. The only men are being spoken of, only men are being documented as having had an influence in our protesting or our liberation movements. It's like women are completely, I don't know, how do I explain this? They're completely erased, yes, thank you. They have been completely erased from liberation movements, and when we as black radical feminists, we come to these spaces and we try to make our presence known, and for people to know that we are there, there's always this hesitance and this reluctance amongst men to allow us to be visible. And that is because of a socialized patriarchal society. And I don't understand I think I have questions more than I have any response. I don't understand why it is that men are constantly being put in the forefront, like there aren't any women who were present during those liberation movements, and they aren't given airtime. They aren't being, their works aren't being documented. They aren't being, when they do try to be given airtime, they are considered as less feminine, and that even is considered, when you are less feminine, it means you're less woman than any other woman, and there's this classified, gendered aspect of what it means to be feminine, and liberation movements continuously perpetuate that. And even in Roads Must Fall, even with the 1976 youth uprising, even Nalapa at NMMU, I won't lie, I don't know any women leaders, okay, they must Jubasa because I've had to redo Jubasa, but there isn't any gender representation, and it's because of inherent patriarchal structure, and I don't understand why it is like that. What is it about women being prevalent or being present in political spaces or in liberation movements that people want to shut down completely? What exactly are you trying to do in the suppression and the continuous oppression and continuous breaking of women, LGBTIQ people as well? Like this is a woman with an X in terms of an inclusive term. In these liberation movements, it's mind-boggling. Even in academia, academia. I've not seen. I don't have a lecturer who is part of the LGBTIQ community. I don't have it. There's no representation at all, and I don't understand what it is about representation that is fought by men. I don't understand it. I think I wanted, yes, I just, because of that, also, yes, because of that, there are more female graduates. I think there was a study, I think a week or two ago, there was an article on the Daily Box about the fact that there are more female graduates in the country, in the world actually, and yet in postgrad level, there aren't any because of some reason or another. They're being discouraged by mostly male scholars because they are gaslit. They're being told they're inadequate. They're being told this, that, or the other. And I do not understand why it is in liberation movements when we try to introduce the black radical feminist stance, the intersectionality aspect to it, they are continuously shut down. I wanted to know, why is it that I was waiting for you to actually make mention of the role women play? Because I read an article that was written by Times Live where you were being interviewed, and I think it was last year, and the only thing you mentioned about women was the fact that your girlfriend on the 15th of on the 15th of June, 1976.
I mentioned it today.
You're fine. I have Listen. On the 15th of June, 1976, his girlfriend bought him a birthday cake, and it was cut in front of the action committee, and it was eaten by everybody. There was no mention of anyone else. No. Spoken in term, Ageko, in the article. To guys, except for the women who gave them dresses so that they can hide as some kind of disguise. That's the only thing. I was like, except, okay, it's fine. Okay, don't move. That's just my perspective.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both to Azolando, Nangams, as well as you, Mr. Mazuka. In case you have any responses at this stage, I just want to see if we can just suppress that for a while, just so we can see the engagement from the floor, because I'd like us to also just spend a generous amount of time to have the engagement there. And arguably in your response, you can just include and integrate the responses. All right, okay. I would now like to officially open it to the floor. I'll take like the first 5 hands and then we can see. You may direct it to either Unangamso Azola Kanye or Mr. Mazibuko. But then if not directly directed to you, I'll also give you an opportunity if you feel the need to respond. Okay, take the first 5 hands. Okay, I'll take Utata, number 1. Oh, let me just count Tata. Number 2. Number 3, gentlemen at the back. Last 2 opportunities. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. All right, we'll take that 4 for now. Yes, Tata.
Yes, sir. I just went from Woma to here. Born and bred in Woma. Surely it may be you've spoken to some people that they might have maybe mentioned the name of it inside. You're the only one with the Boko Mafuna who I have not met in all the revolutionaries of the 76. Of Ismail Kabelem Kamtembu, of Stini Mudli, of Seth Cooper, all of them. I heard about you in Robben Island. We spoke about the Makozom and all that, yeah. Of Stone Cizanis. There were 11 guys in one location who were arrested for 76 riots. And they were put in jail, but they never reached Robben Island. They went through the moon and all that. But what I'm coming to is that during that time, there was peace among the African people. And it was only war against the enemy. That consciousness, what I see is that it's not understood, it's misconstrued. The black that you spoke about is not the black that the ANC is talking about. It's not the black that they understand. You spoke here about the attitude of the mind, the way of thinking. You know, you spoke about psychological liberation. And they were saying it's not a matter of pigmentation. It's the way of thinking, it's a quest for true humanity, black consciousness. When Biko, you say, what asked by Steve Mudli, hey Biko, what's going to happen if everybody gets equal rights? He said they shall cease to be black or white. They shall become Azanians. One Azania, one nation. This is what you were saying, you, the leaders of the time. You went to Robben Island. You came back. There you were talking about apologizing here. You get me, said. You were in the foreground, you were the nucleus of the revolution. Before that, the ANC was doing practically nothing. The ANC had always wanted us to suffer peacefully. The ANC. The PhD have been talking about the land. But the PhD Pambele. Everybody is talking about the land today. I'm feeling, I'm 74 years old. I'm feeling for them. Because we're far from what you created. You brought us so close to liberation. But we are not so feathers now. We're far from that. I'm telling you, if we can get it in another 20 years, it's nothing. We are all captured. We are all captured. It's the African National Congress which made us to be captured. They stole the land they named from us, African National Congress. It's not South African National Congress. What was the name of this country before 1910? Anyone there, you students? Came to Kenya, Morocco to Madagascar, you was the land. So Bugata, there's only one race, the human race. Mandela said, I oppose white domination and also oppose black domination. Biko said, Black consciousness is not a matter of pigmentation. It's a quest. What is the beginning of you changing to what God wanted you to be? That's black consciousness. Siyapi, siya in a colorless society. Utisabuka rather than die for ideas that are going to live, than live for ideas that are going to die. I'm not going to lecture you. I can see you want me to lecture. I'm not going to. What I want to say is that thank you. Thank you for having a subject. It's my friend that is in this thing. Yeah, LMC, yeah. He also got politics from me. Him. He is the principal of this university. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say that we need now, the ball is in your hands now. We need to look above party politics. Let me tell you, there's no one party that is going to take us to where we want to get to. Let me be honest. If the ANC is doing a good thing, support the ANC. You can't tell me now that the PhD is bombing. If the PhD spoke about Pan-Africanism and all that, he was talking about Becky, I wasn't back here. He talked about African relations. And I said, who spoke about African relations before you? It's Robert Mangalisa Sobuk. They know it. They know it. He was in Rabina and he didn't mix with them. Nago said, Sobuka was kept apart of all the others. Kutwa, when Mandela arrived, he found Sobuka there. Kutwa, they were always seen to be talking together. Mame, Uti. Kutwa, they removed Sobuku. Yabulam, why did they remove Sobuku from the other? Who told me it's because Sobuku was going to change it. You get the point? He was always talking about that. They were counted there. DJ, they count 240 prisoners are coming from work plus one. 370 prisoners coming plus one. That plus one is Sobuku. He never meets with them. Sobuku. Uti then. Sobuku. See, I said, Uti see a puma BNC. Go back to Sobuku. They don't like me. Me, I talk like this. Even the PhD don't like me. Not fine. I'm talking about party politics. I'm talking something that can save us. What else? If Mamelani man, if the DA is doing something nice, stand up and say the DA is good here. Because other Lungu, they can handle money. That's why. That is why you do the Sibagana. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pretend to stand the stage. Don't shake your head and go, man. Oh, look at that. 76. 1, 2, 3. Watu Biko, Nekisani, Saukibani, Saloponi, Netisanda, Sitin, Sitamata, Kawi. Yay!
All right, I don't know. I
can't even get it, but
all right.
apologize.
We used to have a contribution, yes.
From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Thank you so much for your contribution, Vuyo. This is okay. So I'm going to need you to just be a little brief. Okay.
Okay. First point, ne? You spoke about youth not having leaders because the leaders leave and go to Summerstrand. Now, I wanted to interrogate that because we all understand Ilogishi as an anti-black space, as where black people go to die. Are we then not invalidating the suffering of black people in that space by them moving to these areas? Because even for myself, I don't imagine myself going back to Elokshi. To me, I'd feel like a martyr, and I am not a martyr, because at the end of the day, the aim is not to die. Secondly, on renaming Africa to Azania, there's a conversation now, especially in student activist spaces, in that what does it mean to change this country to Azania when it is still colonial? It also speaks to the significance of roads falling, the significance of changing buildings and streets. What does it do then after that? After roads is changed to another name, will then what is inside change? Thirdly, something now that's very close to me is that, for an example, there are students that were arrested last year that are still appearing in court now. And that process is it's not nice. Although they may not be in Robben Island or not beaten or electrocuted, but that process is not nice. And I feel like the students need veterans there. And not only, maybe not for resources, not for money, but for us to know that we are Pumega up and how do you deal throughout of that. Fourthly, on women bodies in political spaces, frankly, when the answer is that men know if black men, if black activists understand oppression, understand racism, understand classism, then surely they should understand the violence that is meted out on black bodies. And the only reason why they're not doing anything about that is privilege. They're holding on to their privilege. And now it is for us now to come to a point of realizing that people will not let go of their privilege unless you become militant. We understand that in the country today, there's no way that you're going to negotiate for the land back. You have to take to the streets. You have to be in combat mode. And I feel like women in the country now need to get to a point where they understand that there is no way that we'll be liberated by conversation. There's no way we'll be liberated by marching and presenting memorandums. It's not going to happen. We need to do something more than that, isn't it?
Hello everyone. My name is David Nashunyagweta. I'm not sure if you guys know me, but I'm well known for writing long conversations on Facebook or whatever. And I've most of the time I've gotten into some kind of grudges, especially like during the Christmas fall. I sometimes got overboard and then got into conversations with them and other people. For me, right, I'm not sure. If I talk too long, then you can cut me off, because I'm mostly like a long talker. I would like actually to go through my conversations in a symmetric kind of conversation, whereby the thing was that, okay, if we look at things like, for example, the colonization, where it all started to lead to apartheid and all that stuff. When Africa was colonized, the aspect of it was that the first thing that they did was they looked at the psychological side of things. That's why I sometimes debate on whether we should all learn only in African context, or should we also include the European side? Because if for Europeans to actually colonize Africans and then make them liberate into European, I've read a book, like the specific books that they use, for example, marketing. I've read about those guys who do psychology. I think Edward Bernays and Gustave Le Bon. So these guys, they were talking about crowds, about how you can control people. So they were saying that for you to control people, for them to believe in you, first you have to create a sort of attachment that they can have. And then you have to learn to modify what they believe in, so that you can move it to what you actually believe in. So in that case, if you look at Europeans, they tried to banish what specific things that you believe in. For example, they tried to banish religious beliefs as witchcraft and all that stuff. And then they tried to banish culture, the culture of Africans, so that you could hate your culture and say, no, I cannot be attached to this specific. And then from there, they then modified their own culture, which I would like, I don't know, maybe we'll do it in a private, I don't like being taped, I don't know. We'll talk in private about specific issue, because I'm Zimbabwean, and I lived there till I was, I think, about grade 8, and then I moved here to come to, I wanted to touch also on the education part, the Zimbabwean curriculum. Because in our country, yes, our education, I agree, it's one of the best. But the thing is that, okay, people think that, okay, this type of education, the thing about education is that education teaches you an account, let's say you want to be an accountant. When you get education as an accountant, what is your formal goal? You want to be an accountant and work for a firm. Well, maybe you want to work for these famous firms, EY and all that. So that is your goal. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will benefit black people. Because when you're getting this type of education, even for myself, I'm studying whatever, economics and stats. I'm studying this so that I can go to the working world and probably get money. But it's not meaning that I am learning the African way or anything. So that's also what I would like to do. So what I wanted to say is that when people attack this issue, the problem is that we are attacking these issues on different grounds, and then we are also attacking them at a lower ground. The system that we are fighting, when we are too quick to act. I was talking about, like, when I debate with FISMA, so I was telling them, you guys are quick to act. People already know your weaknesses. They already know how to isolate you. I was also talking, actually I was very happy when you talked about the thing about political parties. Because I also, during FISMA, so I also was asking people, if you look at the SRC,
Finish up.
If you look at the SRC, it's a divided program whereby we are divided into DASO, SASCO, so already the students are divided, whereby in the past they were not divided. Therefore, for example, Franz Fanon, Malcolm X, Mr. Baldwin, even Steve Biko, they were talking about when it comes to unity, we should banish things that separate us. So my idea is that, first of all, before we act, we must plan this exclusively, intensively, so that we are not affected by the others. And then when we act, we should not be in division. We should not be in division. That's my former goal. And when it comes to education, I'm saying that education, in terms of the Zimbabwean curriculum, for example, it does teach us, to be the best accountants, the best engineers in Africa. But then still, it only teaches us to go. If you look at teachers, if you look at Zimbabwe right now, all the teachers, where are they going? They're being invited into Britain, into Australia, into what? So the education that we have in Zim is working better in favor of who? Them. It's not working in favor of you. Because we were taught to be accountants. What am I doing? When Zimbabwe falls, where do I run to? I've not been told to try to pick Zimbabwe up. I've been told to go there.
I've attended a couple of these discussions ever since I came here to NMMU, and I've seen an absence of especially white students across these discussions. As right now, I do not see anyone. I've seen, there's just been, sorry.
No, it's the video.
I don't know whether it's because they are not interested in such discussions, or maybe they fear something, I'm not sure. Secondly is the normalizing of black violence. Every year we celebrate students that they have matriculated, that they've got degrees, they've got PhDs, etc. And you're gonna be like, a child got cum laude their child is from Hanover Park or is from Lavender Hill, gang violence all over in the Cape Flats. We just normalize violence, black violence. Say, this child they had to dodge bullets on their way to school. We just normalize it. Like, why must a 15-year-old girl have to put her fist up to fight racism in 2016 or 17 in Pretoria? So that why must we have that? We're supposed to be free. This 15-year-old girl is supposed to be in school, but she has to fight racism in Pretoria. Why must Muslim students till this day, like last week, they were given tags to wear their Muslim attire in Pretoria schools? Why is it that we're supposed to be free when those things still happen to this day? Secondly, the STEM. Thirdly, sorry, the STEM. As a young black man, I have a problem with the STEM. I have never sung it. Personally, I can't speak Afrikaans, but besides that, I have an issue with the STEM. I do not understand why we had to put the STEM into the national anthem. There are other Afrikaans songs which I've gotten certain people to translate, and they are good. You know, why couldn't we come up with another song? Why must we carry the stain of apartheid and put it into this new South Africa? You know, I'd just like to pose that to the panel.
Thank you.
The STEM, I also have a problem. It took me to, when we were in Robben Island, you will be outside, you will be inside at the age 16. And the boer kids of the warders, they will be seeing it outside and being told that now the people who are inside there must die. And they'll feel very good about it when they come to all those lines. I don't even know their lines. And so just as we got our freedom, what you call freedom, we should be asking ourselves, how did we get this freedom? We got this freedom from Captain Park.
Yes. Yes.
We got this freedom from Captain Park, not
Yes.
from the bushes, not from the guerrilla attacks, not from so-called veterans, I don't want to mention parties. But the point is, this freedom was around coffee, tea, and that is why one Afrikaner, in a form of a AWB, pushed the whole truck into that conversation that was taking place there. I respect him for that. What were we talking about there? We were supposed to do something else, destroy apartheid, not negotiate apartheid. Please, 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 we're not supposed to negotiate apartheid. That's why he fell on the horse. I wish I was there. I would have helped him and said, stand up and get him to step them. And let us, whenever we speak about the issue of this freedom, so-called, let us be careful and say, how did we come to this freedom? Then you can touch land issue, then you can touch, in that particular conversation that was taking place in Captain Park. In that conversation that was taking place in Captain Park, it is where your land was sold. It was negotiated. And it's a pity because now we are going back, thanks to Zuma, to discuss some other things that says, now let's just get the land free. Are you there? Now what I'm saying to you, I wish just can divorce Gupta. If you can divorce the Guptas, I'll be happy. I'm telling you, if you can just divorce Guptas, I'll be the happiest with that man. But I have a problem. Let us take up another point. The issue of education comes in. Again, I want to take you back. Where did we find this freedom? Where? That is why 23 years, or what means now 22 years, we're still speaking who the work Dromedaries and Reiche at the Cape of Fujimu. It is because, and that is why out of that particular conversation in Captain Park came this issue of peace and reconciliation. What is that peace and reconciliation? No one speaks, and I'm going to be rough. Do you know that there are people who were black consciousness and people who were UDF and who killed each other in the 80s? Have we had any peace and reconciliation about those families? Have we? And that was called black on black violence. Who talks about it? Who talks about that? Who has gone to Ngomezulu, who was accused number 9 in our tribe, who died without his head, who was buried without his head? Who goes into that parent and say, sorry, ma? But we're expected to go to whites. Sorry. I refuse. The wrong started when we negotiated. Some of the people who negotiated, they hardly bombed a pole in Zola Wali. Never mind. Now, this is the question. So please, students sitting here, where I might agree with him about the struggle of 1976 being saying the struggle of now, is that this struggle, I agree, it's one, it's the same struggle, but this one is at another level. Because the enemy is no more white. Now, this is the same horse, a different jockey.
Oh, yes.
Tell me that you've changed the horse, not the jockey. That if you've changed the horse, then you're running on a different ride. I am appealing. Let us not be made to feel comfortable. I'll be soon speaking about Desmond Tutu. I'm giving another talk on Desmond Tutu, but where I differed with him, it is when he called us the Rainbow Nation. I would rather be a fruit salad. You know when you're a fruit salad, eh? You remain an apple, you remain a banana, you remain that, but you have one taste. You know? Really, I have a problem with that. Now, renaming of the country. You know these things repeat itself. The land issue is coming back. Now the renaming of the country is coming back. My dear lady, let me tell you something. There are things that some of us, when we look around, and get oppressed again. Today he took me to Sanlam, that Sanlam building. I cannot imagine that that will still exist. I'm even with like you, Alan, your wife, I'll agree with your wife. Let's remove the building. Let us not keep him more earlier. Because I've got a problem. And some of the places where our people have suffered have remained. And with those names. And answering still haunts us. It still haunts us. Maybe you come after to fight it. Maybe you're helping us. It makes me sick to go to Midrand and drive on Verwoesbeek. It makes me sick to drive on J.P. Forster Street. It makes me sick to go to Robben Island and go and visit the prison and still be taken on a ship called Susan Kruger. And Susan Kruger is the wife of the person who took me to jail at the age 16. Now, let me take a good ride. Let me take a good ride. I am saying, where I agree with the ANC, remove these names before. Remove. Let's get strong. What is this? Kabela. And however, talking of the change of names, let us stop this thing. Now, let's just talk about this. I have a problem. We're talking of naming. Soweto, Orlando, Deepcliff. There's a street called Chris Hani Avenue or Chris Hani Road. There's a hospital, Chris Hani Baragwanath. Are we so short of heroes and heroines? That we use so many. Are we short of those names? I'm telling you, there's an overselling, for instance, and the overuse of the name Mandela. Everything is Mandela. Is there no Steve Biko? Is there no Sobukwe? Is there no Ezingcanjini? Is there me? Ask it. And let me tell you something, guys. One thing that is dangerous in whatever we are doing is this, that we are suppressing the history of the people. And one day the people that we ask, and we always want to have this ownership of the struggle and say it is us as that particular color party. And I am warning, and I'm humbly warning, we need to be very careful. That's what apartheid did. Apartheid, it had to hide all the names of the prominent leaders of the struggle. Are we not falling into the same trap? That is just where I have as a problem of renaming. I don't have a problem with renaming. Let's change South Africa. That is why Natim Tetwa raised it again. And maybe he might get to understand and maybe call it Azania. I don't know. Right. I wanted to moving into suburbs. I own every particle of this land.
Oh yes.
I own it. Every particle of this land. But please, don't talking of education and the degrees. We always have this sense of saying, now I've got a degree, now I speak like that. Then I don't belong to the Gazi. What is the Gazi? I was inviting someone one day. And a student for that matter. I invited the student and said, come to my place. He says, where do you live? Natimina, Soweto, Orlando East. He says, where? Soweto, Orlando East. And he says to me, I've never been to a Gazi. They speak about decolonizing Africa, decolonizing, but decolonizing. around, please. You know, it's about time in education that we quote Steve Biko's more. Some of the people that we quote, let's look at their education system. Let's look at where they come from. We must be very careful. And I'm saying, I don't mind, you can do economics in China, it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But the problem in China, yes, you can do it in China. And again, the very thing that you're saying about Zimbabwe, that now you're being taught economics, it's exactly what the decolonization thing is talking about. We should be asking ourselves, if we train you and educate you, we train you for what? And it's not even supposed to be training you in a particular way. It is supposed to be, what is it that Alan and I come from the education background. And we've been always saying to people that now, it is how do we educate our children? And the people who most of the time suppress that kind of a conversation are people of another color. Yeah. Okay. Let me assure you, I belong to the solidarity movement of the Fees Must Fall. I've argued that the struggle of Fees Must Fall is the struggle of, it's not the struggle of the campus, it's the struggle of the community. We must now start breaking these walls that separate the campus from the community. Yeah. Break those walls. Those are the ones that will make us not speak that way. Those are the ones that will call for the research about the very communities that we're not staying in. I am appealing to you. Go back to those communities. Yes, South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Okay, no, I'm listening. Now, I want to go back to you, my lady. She asked only one question in different ways. Why are men feeling so threatened? Yes. I will praise my girlfriend even tomorrow on my birthday. That's on the 15th. She did something for me. I can't suppress that. I can't. And fortunately, she's my wife now. She's the mother of my two best, a boy and a girl. And I'm not in any way, and again, we need to be very careful. And please, I don't have to warn women, but we need to be very careful. We come just like the struggle. We come from a very patriarchal communities. Even the Bible we read, is so patriarchal. I mean, I'm a Christian, but and there's never been a Jesus Christ of a woman who died, and only the women were under the cross and crying, and the person was up there was that boy who said, "Mama, here's your son. Son, here's your mother." Now, I'm trying to say, as women, I think, and I'm not saying, and I've never suggested in any way that there were no women in the struggle of 1976. And I've said that it was not a boys' club. There were women, but they might have not been in the action committee, so I cannot impose them into the action committee if they're not there historically. Okay? There were not, there was only one woman in that. And that's what you guys must correct. That's the struggle to fight for. And be supported by them. That's the struggle. We come from that. And when I say we, I don't mean you as women, but we as this, you as this generation of young people, not you as women. Please understand that. And that's what we as men now, we as men must also start to change. And I will agree with you there. We must start changing our attitude towards our women. We cannot just use them as passers. And we cannot just use them as secretaries only. They must be presidents. As I'm going to first class woman, so I will correct it, but it can be, it can be leaders. You know, she dresses well. Okay. Can I say this? Now, she's beautiful, I must say. Ezingcanjini. I'm joking. Now, the point I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that the struggle of women should be within the struggles of fighting discrimination. The struggle of women, of LGBTY, it should be within the struggle of the land. The people who are,
Can we have order in the house, please?
Gentlemen at the back.
Please, guys. Men, I think this one's for you specifically, guys, please. Thank you.
Are we okay?
It was too pretty. Should open the windows.
The other thing that I wanted to say is that our struggle in this country is not only a struggle about, as we said, land. It's not only struggle about corruption. It is also struggle about the women that are working on that land. And we should be starting to talk about that. That even the very African culture tells us that the people who used to go out there to till the land were women. And we should be saying, if they did, they should own that land. Now, I am saying I have nothing against the struggle of women. Actually, I will support them. I will support every struggle, and I will lead men, particularly about what happened in 3 months and so, you know, where our women have been taken just as tissues. You use, you throw away.
Yeah.
And it's sad. I was brought up in a motherly environment. I was led, my leaders, all I worked for the SACC when I came out of Robben Island, were women. And I'm still passionate about the leadership of women. But we speak in 2016 youth development now lately of what is called ethical and values-driven leadership. We're lacking that in South Africa today. Some of our leaders who are ahead have undermined women themselves. They've undermined Nangizwa. Some of the leaders in the government today have asked for pictures of naked women. Requested on SMS. And they don't ask for anything from a woman. Count Bonisalando. Those are our leaders. What happens then to those who are following? How do they undermine women? If it stinks in the head, man, it stinks in the tail. And I'm saying, let our leaders stop doing these things. You speak of any leader, some of them, they raped these girls. And we should let our conscience sit on that. And stop politicizing the issue of respecting our women. Let's not stop politicizing it. Let it not be just on Women's Day or on that how many days?
Valentine's.
16 days. And then after that Bible is closed. I spoke on black violence. I said we've not reconciled yet. Whites in meetings. I've always asked. It's June 16 on Friday, yeah? It's June 16 on Friday. Tell me how many whites will be wherever you are commemorating June 16. Tell me. And these are the whites that we must reconcile with. Tell me how many whites you can, but call for a tender. You'll see how many companies that are white that will come in. Call for a tender. They'll even use you as black people front up with them. They're using, that's the space where whites come very effective. I just didn't agree with my comrade here with the whites can count money. We can count it better. I'm telling Zimbabwe. That's all. Now, I'm trying to say that is worried me. We've talked, we've engaged, we've done everything with our white counterparts, but we still do not get answers. We just don't get answers. They will tell you, we love black people, We love them. Black people, come to our class. Oh no, this is not violent. Come to our conversation. Oh no, you're going to talk about the past. Yes, we are. This step, I've answered that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, for the purposes of time, I really wanted to have a second round and also to let Unangamso no Azola respond. But I think we really are pressed for time. Unless the two of you can do a 1 minute thing, then unfortunately I don't. But then I don't want to suppress you as well. And so I can award you if you can discipline yourself to a 1 minute or 2 minute conclusion, then I can award you that time. However, then you cannot blame me if certain things you wanted to express, you didn't get an opportunity to express. So do you want to take the opportunity or not?
I'll take it quickly.
Perfect.
I just need 10 seconds. I really hate this obsession black people have with having white people in our spaces. It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. They don't need to be here. Why do you need to point that out? What do you need them for? What contributions are they going to make? What do you want from white people? Things that they're already taken from you that you know now you must be learning how to get them back. No man, stop it.
Okay. No, I just want to thank Utatu Biko for coming and giving us a very provocative talk. But he still has a lot of learning to do, especially when it comes to the gender question also. Yes, and I want to point out that the culture of politicians being rapists have also simmered down to student movements now, unfortunately. And when I began my talk, I made an urge to men in the room, to try and do better, myself included. But yeah, more than that, it was a great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nangamso and Azola, for your contributions, and everyone on the floor as well. I just want to allow my colleague, Kamani, just to do a formal vote of thanks to Mr. Steve Bantu Biko and to Nangamso and Azola. Here.
Sitikosa madenga ujana nawatunza nabili kodwa mandithathe ithuba uyakubhalele ndithethe isiXhosa kodwa njalo maqale ndithi enkosi kuTata Masibuko ngexesha lakhe lithathileyo lokuthi aze bayo abizwe ukanda kunye neZingcanjini adibane kunye nolutsha lwaseNgoma kunye naTaveni. Siyabulela. Okwesibini mandibulele uNangamso Manumalo sibulela kakhulu sibamba ngasibini sokandrathi leSingcanjini xa sehlabeni khona ukuthi usabele ngegalo lakho namhlanje. Mntakadayini nakuwe tani siyabulisandla kwakhona siyabulela kakhulu ningadinwa ifunde nirhabule apho nirhabule khona niphokoza kakuthi. Sibulele kuba umsisi weZingcanjini Heritage kakhulu ngokuba yingqondi yalo mnyadala sinawo namhlanje uye uze nawo uKandrad ekuthetheni ke nosiphokazi basebenzisana ndakuba kanti ndenza ityala elikhulu ukuba ndinodibeni nxatsho nakuwo siphokazi usebenzile ukuqala ukucinga ukuceba kunye nokwenza umcimbi namhlanje kodwa bona abantu benze ukuba kubekho lo msitho nini ukuza nizozimasa lo msitho nixoxe nibe negalelo kukhona okulungisiweyo pha ngaphandle njengesiqhelo njengesiqhelo singuKandrad neZingcanjini siyabulela ni kuthiwa ke umuntu engelile emsini akabuye ngaphethanga siyabulela ke bawulando Masibuko bona aba balapha ekhaya
Namaste,